In today's Roblox Spray Paint video, we'll be revisiting and improving my first ever improvement video on the graffiti piece. And the reason why I'm revisiting is because I just thought the shape language was super interesting at that time, but I feel like I didn't have the knowledge in that moment to make it even better than it was. And yes, I'm finally in a public server making the artwork so other people can see what I'm doing. Thank you to this user while I was spray painting. They made this cool artwork of me, which is really cool. I hope they enjoy the rainbow paint that I gifted them as a thank you, and of course stick around for the before and after at the end, and let's get into it. So you may have noticed from the title, just in case if you're wondering, a wild style is basically the most complex of complex when it comes to lettering in graffiti pieces. They're like to the point where they're almost incomprehensible, but there's still a stylistic skill involved and there's still this structural integrity within them. I'll admit this is definitely beyond my skill range at the moment, but I just really wanted to give it a try, especially with the design language of that old improvement video that I was talking about. Going in with the sketching, looking at reference of course of my sketches. I finally have a second monitor when looking at reference, so I don't have to alt tab constantly, which is absolutely life-changing. So as this was my first wild style attempt, I still wanted to dial it back a little bit and decided to go for like very big blocky shapes. Again, it was still quite difficult, but since it was Roblox Spray Paint, I was able to add and erase efficiently. And one thing I was very scared of was adding depth. I think I was very ambitious at that moment. I was going to stick to this very simple depth of letters, but I decided to like make it even crazier and add like triangular and pyramid type 3D shapes in there, cylinders. But again, there's still this element of simplicity here because a lot of the symmetry was saved by just additional triangular shapes. So yeah, I was going a little above and beyond in my skill range, but still being somewhat considerate for my skill range. So now I begin with like the coloring and the blocking in of the actual letters and shapes themselves. Here I just wanted to outline everything to be clear and visible so I could get rid of the sketch layer to reduce the spray count. Since Roblox Spray Paint has a ruler tool that has improved quite a lot actually. Beforehand the ruler tool would be not giving like the most super cleanest of lines, but now they're like quite solid, which I'm happy with. And I think here I did a separate layer for the actual color blocking, like blocking in the colors themselves. I just didn't want to lose the overall shape of the piece or like get lost in all the different shapes. So yes, the ruler tool definitely came in handy here for just really speeding up the process, even in coloring, where if I was trying to cover a massive space in that shape or letter, I'll just expand the brush size and I'll just make any other straight line, but since the line is so thick, it covers like a solid area of the space, and then obviously using a smaller brush to fill in the tiny gaps in the corners of the shapes. So yes, the ruler tool was super handy here. So here I begin to color in the depth. I just wanted to keep the same color palette going throughout these improvement videos. I just think it's like a nice evolution from each step. And again, like I mentioned, the ruler tool just comes in helpful, as you can see, with those super sharp and jagged corners. It was only really with the rounded corners that was somewhat difficult, but again with the ruler tool, just dragging across a little bit at a time easily fills up the space, even with rounded ones. So I don't know why I said that. Rounded corners are also very easy to do. That's just the ruler tool coming in clutch basically. So you'll see later on in the video with a comparison of the before and after. I did try my best even when I was going for a wild style here. I did try my best to keep that design language still present there, even though this was very out there. I think I managed to translate that style over quite decently actually. Like I remember looking at the finalized graffiti piece of that old video, and they had the C and the A. This kind of resembled like an owl's face, so I thought maybe I could get that owl face somewhere in there again. Here you can finally see the ruler tool in action when it came to blocking in the colors. So you can see that I maxed out the thickness of the line and just going into those big areas, so you can see how much more efficient it is than like manually coloring it in. So with this gradient, I thought I could have definitely picked a different color with this. It was quite subtle, but I feel like this was probably the biggest change I would have made back then. I was happy with it at that moment, but I feel like it definitely could have been a stronger gradient. Now for that blue outline. So yeah, there was a lot of orange and yellows happening here, but now this blue outline really is that kind of contrast and nice relief from all of those oranges and yellows. Here's where the structure and the whole wild style piece itself starts to really pop from the wall. I'm using it as an outline and also to add shadow as well at the very bottom, like really super thick shadows. I didn't want the letters to kind of mush in together and start losing their individual shapes. I went in with a thinner line with the ruler tool and just outlined each shape and letter just to make sure that they don't, blend in together when looking at them from afar. And of course, adding the shines and the highlights, it's just that nice little detail to really make all the shapes and letters stand out. And here's another satisfying part of the process, adding that white outline It was just super satisfying and I really wanted to do it here. I definitely could have made the outline a little thinner, but I just really like doing this since it makes the piece just stand out so much. These little background bubbles are just another nod to my very first graffiti piece that I tried. It was like purple bubbles that I used. I could have done a little bit more detail, but I feel like this detail with the outline was more than enough. Here are like the touches of depth, where I just thought the colors and the shapes were, I think, were comprehensible, that they were like 3-dimensional, but I just needed that extra bit of color for the letters and the shadow actually, just to emphasize the dimension of the shapes and letters just a tiny bit more. So let's take a look at the before. So you can see what a very interesting and unique design for a graffiti piece that I've done. You can see where the C and the A make that cool owl shape, the design language of the stars, and the curved shapes and the roundness and also like the pointiness, all very contained in this like very tight space. And now let's look at the after. A lot more explosive as expected from like a WILDSTYLE approach. The shapes are a lot more out there, even though they are contained in like white outlines and borders. They are definitely more free and more like in your face and less contained. But again, keeping that same color palette, trying to keep that design language in mind with like the circles and the pointy like star effects, but still giving it the significant change up. If you want to see that old improvement video, you can click on the screen now or check out the graffiti playlist for more. Your support has been amazing on the channel. Like, comment and subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.